I don't think. Now, listen, we love everybody. We don't be mean, but ESPN. I mean, you were there, but I don't think you showed up. I, what I mean is, ESPN didn't do you good when you got. And I'm hardcore. When you got to Fox TV, they used you in all the right ways.
It's the Kenny Wallace Conversation, brought to you by JEGS.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kenny Conversation, brought to you by JEGS, the leader in high-performance aftermarket car parts. Remember to go to jegs.com for everything and anything you need for your vehicles. Well, today's a big day because we're very lucky at Kenny Conversation to always get the stars in all the sports, whether it's Tony Stewart or Ron Capps or Haley Deegan. And now today, I believe we have the biggest star in his profession, sports journalism, Bob Pockrass. Bob, thank you for being on Kenny Conversation.
Thanks for having me, Kenny.
Well, let's start like this. It's not a game show because this is very serious. Everybody wants to know, who is Bob Pockrass? So, yeah, right. Let's start right there. So, Bob, where are you from? And tell us a little bit about your journey to NASCAR. And we'll go back and forth on Kenny Conversation.
All right. Well, I was born in New York City, but lived the first 10 years of my life in New Jersey. And then I moved to Indianapolis. My dad got a new job, and my family said, "Hey, we got to move to Indianapolis." And as I know how much of a northerner I was, I met some friends there in Indianapolis, some kids in the neighborhood, and they said, "Hey, we're going to go to the park and play ball." And so I got my baseball bat and my glove because I thought we were going to go play some stickball or some baseball. And no, not in Indiana. No, that's basketball.
Larry Bird, the Hoosiers.
Yeah. Yes. So I had a lot to learn when I got to Indiana. And one of those things was, the one thing you do learn when you live in Indiana is some auto racing, because that's certainly big. It's in the culture there. You hear Back Home Again in Indiana before the Indy 500, and you're like, what's the big deal? Well, like, you learned that song in elementary school in your choir class, that you have to take. Like, that's the song that you sing. So it's just totally ingrained in the culture there. Senior skip day when I was in high school, yeah, you go watch practice at the Indy 500. So that was kind of my indoctrination to racing.
I
went to Indiana University. I didn't know a whole lot about stock cars, but when about around the time I graduated, I think I went to Days of Thunder, and I laughed about how hard those cars hit each other, because I knew, man, they don't hit each other that hard in Indianapolis, because I had spent some summers working as a quote runner for United Press International. You go get quotes from drivers and bring them back to the reporters. And I spent a summer working for the Marion, Indiana paper as a reporter for their big Indy 500 special section. So writing stories about drivers. One of the years was there, Willie T. Ribbs was the one, making his historic start. So I was there for a lot of history. And when I graduated college, I sent out about over 200 resumes and clip packages in the Daytona Beach News Journal call.
200.
Yeah, no, you wanted to get a job, and look, you knew you were gonna. And Daytona said, "Hey, we have this opening in our DeLand office. It's a small town, but there's some high schools there. There's a college, Stetson University, and there's this short track called Volusia County Speedway." And I looked it up, and I think Kenny Wallace had just won a bush race there. Because what year did you win that? 90 or 91?
91.
Well, I was there just a little too late, because I arrived in August of 91. Spent 12 years there, and then went to a magazine called NASCAR Scene, which was a weekly magazine that covered NASCAR.
Good one.
Magazines go, that it didn't last, but we had a website called Scene Daily. That website eventually closed, but the people who own that also own the Sporting News. They rolled me into the Sporting News. Then I went to ESPN in 2015, and then I joined Fox in 2019.
I think what I hear that really interests me is so many kids nowadays, they want to have their road planned out. You moved from New Jersey with your father, right?
Yeah.
You were going to Indy whether you liked it or not.
That's right.
So you were just going with Dad, and this journey that you're telling us about, you were just going and doing. Was anything planned?
No, I mean, really, nothing was planned. I mean, when you're a sports writer, you never know where it's going to go. I mean, when I worked at Daytona, I worked there for 12 years, and I mean, I would say the last 10 years, I was sending out resumes fairly regularly trying to find jobs. There was one year, I want to say it was like 1995 or 96. There's one day I got a call from three different newspapers on my voicemail about jobs, and just I didn't get them. So but like everywhere. I mean, if you want to know, like I interviewed in Orlando, Florida, Melbourne, Florida, Bradenton, Florida, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Anderson, South Carolina. Had phone interviews with people in Mobile, Everett, Washington. I'm trying
Trying
to
to
think
get a
where I was
job.
trying to get a job while I was working in Daytona, just to go and cover sports in those communities, Fort Wayne, Indiana. So you never knew where you might end up, and then what happened is that my seat in the Daytona Media Center was right across from where all the people from NASCAR Scene Magazine worked, in the
Mhm.
media center in Daytona. So I got to know all the people there. They got to see how I worked. They saw me twice a year during speed weeks, and then in July. And so when they had an opening, they told some people, they're like, "Hey, we can you encourage this guy to contact us, because we I guess they kind of liked what they saw. They knew how I went about my job, and so they already kind of knew what I was about before, I ever applied.
So, like Larry McReynolds, one of our biggest, I worked where you were at for
Mhm.
15 years. I love Fox, love Steve Craddock, all my bosses, Eric Shanks, and I learned a lot from Larry Mack. So, I did my due diligence. As Larry said, I got my notes, and I want to read this to you, and I want to talk about this. Who is Bob Pockrass? Came on the NASCAR scene with his own style, massive amount of stats, and first person in the media center. Gained Bob national attention. Bob, you're rare, you're different. Uh, did you ever realize that you were different than all the media members? I mean, listen, I know you get along with all
Yeah. Well,
clubs, buddies there. Did you ever realize that you were different?
yeah, well, I'm anal. Can I say that on
Right.
your show?
Oh, hell yeah. Hey, it's a Kenny conversation.
I think I I just have a natural curiosity, and I just I remember things like, oh, I need to check on this. I need to continue to check on that. I need to continue to look things up. And I just have, I mean, you talk about, like, you asked where I was from. My parents grew up in New York City. They were born in the mid 30s. And
Oh,
so,
depression, depression parents.
absolutely. And so they're like, you gotta have to work for everything you can get, because nothing's gonna be handed to you. And it's so I think that's just something that was instilled from me, from when I was a child. And uh, I guess, I mean, I think we're all a little different, but I
I'm
just
different. I
yeah.
know you're different.
Some people might be able to do the job and be the in and not need to be first in the media center, or less. But for me, I like to get in there and kind of get myself settled, so then I kind of know I can get focused on the work at hand. And so, I think the other thing that, you ask what makes you different, is that, I love journalism. I always say that people's discretionary time and their discretionary income, they don't have a lot of it. And if they're going to depend on me to help them understand a sport that they watch, and help them determine whether they're going to go to a race or not, or buy a driver's t-shirt or not, or how they spend their weekends, that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? And you want to do it right, and you want to be accurate, and you want to be fair, for those people who are following you and reading what you write. And if you can impact somebody in that way, that's a great, to me, that's a great thing that you can do in life.
So let's recap. You come out of New Jersey with your New York born parents, born in the Depression. You work hard. You follow your mom and dad to Indy. You don't really realize it, but it's basketball country, not baseball country. you grew up around the Indianapolis 500. You point out that Willie T. Ribbs was a big story early in your career. Then you head on down to Daytona. You put out 200 resumes. Now, the reason I'm recapping this is I want the kids to understand that you didn't have a plan. And I know I'm repeating myself, but you made your own lane and you became popular because of a hardcore work ethic. Now, this is where I'm going with this. And we go back and forth on Kenny Conversation. In my opinion, you become so popular with your work ethic that to me, you land one of the biggest jobs in NASCAR journalism. Fox Sports, Fox TV out of LA, Eric Shanks, Steve Craddock, all the big boys, they come calling. What was that like when you finally got what? I mean, was it the big call? What was it?
So what happened is that ESPN decided they didn't need a NASCAR writer anymore. They didn't need a motorsports writer. So my contract was ending with ESPN. And actually, ESPN was like, we'd love to be able to keep you in some form. We just don't know how or where. And this is when they were going through a lot of leadership changes. So I wasn't getting a lot of answers. And I think and I put out a tweet there at the, I found out the day before the banquet in I want to say 2018. And so that after the banquet, I said, hey, I'm a free agent. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But there was also still the possibility of staying at ESPN. I just didn't know. And a lot of people called so at the time, and still, I was living in Charlotte. My wife was based in New York. So,
Wow.
so my goal was I wanted to stay in journalism. B, I wanted to be able to see my wife more in New York, and C, then stay in racing. And I talked to a lot of people in racing. I talked to a lot of people outside of racing. That was a time when gambling news was really big because everybody knew it was coming. There were a lot of gambling websites that talked to me, had contract from at least one of them and one on the way. And, Fox didn't really have, uh, they didn't have an opening per se, but they knew they knew that that many of their people followed me on social.
Everybody.
They knew that uh, that I brought a lot of things to their attention that they would want to talk about during the telecast. They had recently stopped having written word on their website, so they didn't really have like a writer or reporter who they could go to and say, "Hey, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen?" and stuff. And so they saw that I could be a really good fit for them, a really good addition. And I would say the January 1, 2019, it'd be about 30% chance I was going to be at the Daytona 500 because I figured I was going to move to New York, probably cover gambling. But I talked a little bit to Fox, and they came back soon after January 1 and had something that I liked, and they actually let me live in New York
Mm.
because I'm not in studio all that much, though I'm here for some stuff today. But it was a great fit. And it's another one of those examples, Kenny. You talk about like you don't know your path. I got the ESPN job, and mainly because again, the editor there had seen my work and had seen what he was at the track. He knew what I could do, and and wanted me on his staff back in 2015. So it's just a matter of you never know who's watching, and you never know who's paying attention.
Yeah, and I want to say something. This is my compliment, my comment. I don't think. Now, listen, we love everybody. We don't be mean, but ESPN. I mean, you were there, but I don't think you showed up. Uh, what I mean is, ESPN didn't do you good when you got. And I'm hardcore. When you got to Fox TV, they used you in all the right ways. They put you on TV. They made these short videos with you. Bob Pockrass is way more popular, way more famous now that he's with Fox because they used you in the right way. Now, what do you think of what I just said? Is that correct? Is that wrong?
I mean, I think ESPN obviously didn't have a daily NASCAR show, right? So they didn't have the outlets. It was me and Ricky Craven and a couple others. There
You were
was
slowly getting rid of all that.
right, right, and but they treated me well. And in fact, a couple of days after I signed with Fox, I got a call and they're like, from somebody in their international division was like, we might be able to get you to some F1 races. Could you know? Are you staying? I was like, no, I just signed with Fox. So there was still have a lot of respect for the people there. I felt like that they, even though it wasn't a high priority, maybe on the TV side, from the .com side, they treated me really well, and they always seemed to have an interest in what was going on. I just think Fox had a lot of avenues. What they didn't have at the time when they hired me was we didn't have a website, and I was actually able to write for USA Today for a year. And then foxsports.com kind of relaunched in 2020 with the app and new website, and that's when they added those duties for me. But yeah, they've made me certainly more famous, more noticeable. That whenever you're on TV, my goal is always to be able to impact as many people as possible. And I think at ESPN you certainly could do that because of the reach of the website. But obviously, for NASCAR fans and the people who follow the sport, NASCAR Race Hub, NASCAR Race Day, and now, I think on our website too at foxsports.com, that we provide a lot of information for them.
Yeah. And, years ago, the great Bill Elliott said to me, Kenny, life is about timing and circumstances. So, once again, this is my opinion. ESPN loses you, Fox gets lucky and gets you, and you've got good managerial there. And boy, I think it's just like you went from one team that was playing 500, and now you're in the World Series or the Super Bowl every week. So that's just my opinion. Bob, congratulations on that. You got one hell of a job. So I've noticed that it seems to me like you've always been a pretty serious man. But they've taken you out of your element, I feel like. I see you at Bristol partying it up, having a good time, and I know that's part of the content. Bob, are you fun? Or are you fun on the at home?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, Kenny, is that when you're at the racetrack and I'm a reporter,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a job and you have 600 things to do and I have 600 things to do. And so, I'm going to ask you the questions, and, there may be a little bit of small talk, but there's not a lot of time for that. So you're going to see me, I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to go on, and we're going to go our ways. And I think, I certainly have kind of a business side to me. And I think that's what people see. And that was what people thought I was like all the time. But I feel like I have a silly side. I have a humorous side. I can joke around, but that probably doesn't come off when people are watching a press conference or reading a story. You have to kind of see it more in a more interactive way. And certainly Fox has allowed me, has showed that side of me. And
It was a big hit, Bob.
yeah,
When you were dancing through the foam, it was
yeah,
a
I mean,
huge
look,
hit.
yeah, it's fun, and
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I just, yeah, it's part of my personality. Now it's not something, um I mean, it's not like I'm going to phone parties every week, so I'm
I get it.
finding one out. But
You're
but
more business like
it
the one
was,
I taught you.
I mean, in fact, so I mean, how that gets started, had taken over Fox's Instagram for a day at Bristol, and it was near the end of the night, after the race, well, like the truck race or Xfinity race. And I asked the people at Fox Social, I said, "Hey, am I done?" And they're like, "We really need one last bit, to kind of close out this story." And I was like, I was tired, and I was kind of actually probably a little ticked off that that I really need to do another one. I mean, seriously, it's been 12 hours. And somebody from the track is like, just made an announcement, "Hey, we're going to the foam party Does anybody want to come? And I was like, well, if they want something to close out this story, might as well go to the phone party. And I did that video like, hey, I'm at the phone party, probably a little, just kind of a little bit, I don't, after a 15-hour day, a little delirious.
Pissed. You were
Yeah,
pissed.
yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna give them something, see if they like it. And
I'm
now
gonna
it's,
jump around.
yeah, now I gotta do it every year because it's just kind of become a little bit of a tradition. And it's fun, and that's the thing that you've. Uh, I mean, people enjoy it. And if people enjoy it, then then let's do it.
I think you made it okay for people that maybe on the serious side to jump around and have a good time. Well, you know, what a journey you've had. Couple more things, Bob. Your advice with the ever changing times now. We went from antenna for your TV, we went from no phones. Now this is everybody's world, and people at Fox know that. They're live streaming now. What advice, in particular now, stay in our lane, what advice do you give to kids now with this new era that we're in? And they want to be like you, Bob.
My first advice is, especially if they want to get into motorsports,
Yeah.
is don't feel like you have to find a job that's 100% motorsports right away. There's lots of, as you know, Ken, there's lots of agencies and other groups that work in the sport, but they also work in other sports and even, other entertainment in parts of the entertainment industry. And if you can find something that might be 10% NASCAR or 20% NASCAR, and you get to do all these other things, that's not a bad thing at all, because many people in this industry want people who have other experiences outside NASCAR to bring perspective. And if you, as long as you're doing some stuff in NASCAR, people are going to notice. You're going to meet people, and you'll be able to get that job that's 100% NASCAR or 100% motorsports later on, and you're going to be probably so much better at it. So that's my and I. The other thing I'd say is do things that make you uncomfortable. Put yourself
Mm.
in positions. If you're like, man, I don't know if I can do that. Well, the only way to know is to try. And if you can do that
Jump
with
around in some foam.
that's right. Or, well, I mean, look, I did some pit reporting for an ARCA race earlier this year,
Yeah.
and I'd never done that before. And I had always tell people, hey, put yourself in an uncomfortable position. And when I saw we had an opening, I was like, well, I'm going to put myself in an uncomfortable position, and just to grow and just to see what I could do. And I think that's the thing, is you've got it, because whatever you do, uh, you're always whatever job you're going to have, you're going to get put in uncomfortable positions, and you're going to, maybe something that you didn't expect, or you're going to be given an assignment that you really don't know much about or how to manage it. But if you've at least been in that position before, you're used to having to either learn on the fly or go with the flow or reach out and find things out. And that type of experience is invaluable.
So when I made it to the NASCAR Cup Series, that was it for me. There was nothing bigger. I was where I wanted to be. Can you go any higher in your profession, or are you where you want to be right now?
Well, I mean, where I was before, I mean, at ESPN, like that, I mean, when you're a sports journalist, that has
That's
been the place, right? I mean, that's
big.
nothing
The
against where
big
I'm at
logo.
now, right? The worldwide leader, right? And so when they tell you they don't want you anymore, or
Mm,
might not want you anymore,
good point.
that's rough. That's not the greatest feeling. I I certainly content, and who knows what's down the road, who knows what the next thing's going to be. But so I never say, well, like I've reached the
Yeah.
pinnacle. Well, I mean, there's more people to reach, and more people to touch, and more people to, as far as with content. And so who knows what's out there. But I mean, you talk about me being popular, and I
You
think
are.
what's a great thing about that is that I got into this to be able to help people understand the sport and whether they enjoy it. And quite frankly, and my bosses here will hate me say this, like if they read what I write and say they want to go watch a basketball game, well, I mean that's the writer. I hope is writing something, and they'll be like, maybe I'll go watch a race, right?
Yeah.
So but you've done your job. You've helped influence what they're going to do. And so when people when so many people come up to you at the racetrack and say that they follow you and everything and want to say hello, like that's just that's awesome because that's why I'm doing it. I mean, I love you, Kenny, but I'm not doing it so that I can talk to Kenny Wallace.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because I want the Kenny Wallace fans to know what Kenny Wallace is all about.
Yeah. Same here. That's why I have you on Kenny Conversation. So, Bob, listen, thank you so much for telling us your story. And let's end it like this. I've asked Kevin Harvick, Tony Stewart, Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin. We've had them all on here. And I'm going to end the same way with you because I think it takes us all. It takes the race car driver, takes the journalism. So I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked them. 4 questions. 4. Your opinion on the state of NASCAR right now?
Ooh, I think I feel like it's on the upswing. I feel like it's creating some new fan bases. The challenge is, if you ask me to predict where the car industry is going to be in 5 or 10 years, that's hard to predict. So how am I supposed to know where the auto racing industry is going to go?
You just
I
answered it.
Right, like that.
You
It's
answered the sport right there. Don't know where we're going yet.
Yeah, but I will say this: I still think that the biggest challenge is, especially now, um, the biggest challenge is getting people to have passion for the drivers, because in the past you used to go to Talladega, and 10 years ago you go to Talladega and you see Calvin and Hobbes stickers peeing on a Chevrolet logo or a Ford logo on the back of a car. You don't have that anymore. You don't have that natural connection to your driver of your favorite car manufacturer, and you don't have the Busch Series going to like South Boston and that driver champ getting a ride and then building their way up. And so that, you don't have these track champions who are now racing on Sundays who people kind of feel connection to through their local communities. So I think that, to me, that's the biggest challenge for NASCAR going forward.
So I'm going to skip number 2 and number 3.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Okay. No, right there. See there? It says the sport is too corporate. Okay. But you just brought it up. So I'm going to skip 2 and 3. We're going to go back to the next gen and penalties. The sport is too corporate. We all know that. And it's because the sponsors don't want their drivers saying anything wrong to dilute their sales. Don't say nothing wrong, because then we'll only get 50% of the people to buy our product. So you're a journalist. Did you like it better when Rusty threw the water bottle at, Dale Sr.? Did you like it better when Dale Jr. got fined for saying SHIT? What is your opinion? Are we too cleaned up? Is that why we don't have the decals of, and the drama? I mean, it was fun, more fun back then. What's your opinion?
Well, I mean, my opinion is that the sponsors still have way too much influence, but they pay for that influence, right? And so the way to fix that is to make it so that the teams are less dependent on sponsorship, right? And if they can figure out the model and figure out this charter system to a point where the teams are less reliant on sponsorship, they potentially can get make more decisions based on talent rather than sponsors that a driver is bringing, and B, potentially let them be a little bit more themselves.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt we definitely on purpose dumbed the drivers down. That's why I like Denny Hamlin. I like Actions Detrimental. I think, although it makes the NASCAR wiggle a little bit uncomfortable, it's like you said, you got to go outside your comfort zone. And Dale Jr., hired Denny Hamlin, and I think it's really good for the sport. So let's go back. We're coming down to the last two. What is your opinion on the next gen car, the new car?
I'm mixed. I like the fact that a Trackhouse and a colleague can come in and win some races, and it's probably because of the parity that the new car brings. Not a fan. The challenge has been last year on the safety side, and currently still on the short track side. The advancement on the car, because NASCAR runs it all, is it takes too long. They're not very nimble in it being able to make changes because A, you only have a single supplier of parts, but B, the teams are not working on stuff.
Stenhouse burnt up again.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
So and so what happens now, NASCAR and that team kind of talk and maybe try to figure out a fix. But in the past, what would happen is that every team would be calling Stenhouse's would be calling Mike Kelly over at JTG, and they'd all be trying to think of answers and trying to work on answers because they can figure out, they can make their own parts and pieces to improve it. And obviously in this news era, they can't, they're not going to make a new piece that they can't, because NASCAR's in charge of all the manufacturing and all the designs of it. So I think to me, that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I understand, and I agree with you 100%. So the last one, 3-4 months ago, Hendrick received, with all the teams combined, I believe it was the largest penalty in NASCAR history, combined like $400,000.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on the incredible fines, the tech inspection, the way they're governing the car?
Well, I mean, I think the fines have to be big in this because of the nature of this car, and I think what I think's been best is that after that,
Take a drink, Bob.
they've now started showing us the parts and pieces, like last weekend, they showed us the photo of Kevin Harvick's windshield, and then they showed us the part and the piece and how like difficult it would be for it to come loose, during a race. And certainly that's their side of it, but at least they showed us the Austin Dillon piece that got them in trouble. They showed us the SHR spoiler that got them in trouble. So at least they're now, I like the fact that they're at least showing us what's wrong and explaining to us what's wrong, so that those types of fines, it helps fans make at least a little bit more educated determination on whether those fines are just or not.
Right, I agree. Well, Bob, listen, you were incredible. You've had an incredible journey. I'm sure your journey's not over, but listen up, everybody. We are in podcast form now, and boy, we sure are showing up. We're on Spotify, iTunes. You can listen to Bob Pockrass on the way to work and on the way home. You can split it up. Bob, thank you so much, buddy. And what do we got? 4 more races to go?
4 more. It'll be
4
exciting.
more. Thank you so much for being on Kenny Conversation.
Thanks for having me, Kenny. Appreciate it.